So, today I have an interview with the guys that made Skipchaser, and yeah, I think they are probably fine to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Michael Wilson, founder of Ponywolf, and I do development and game design on the game Skipchaser.
And I'm James. I have the... I blew it already. So I do artwork and animation on Skipchaser.
How did you come up with the name Ponywolf?
I'd like to say it's more creative than this, but I was trying to find a short domain name, that didn't have to have games or studio behind it. So we wrote a little program that put different animal names together and pinged out to a DNS to see if anybody else owned the name, and it spit back name combinations that were open and available. And then we looked at that list and liked Ponywolf because it sounded like a band name, so it could be kind of an empty vessel for kind of a naming. And then we did that logo design. I don't know if people can see that, but the little kind of half pony, half wolf howling at the moon just kind of became a symbol for what we were kind of trying to do. A small team working on kind of craft games. It just fit.
Well, I have to admit, when I saw the name Ponywolf for the first time, I was like, what? What is that? I had never seen a game like that before.
Yeah, thank you. Well, maybe thank you.
Well, it sure makes it unique.
Well, we were talking about this earlier. I think you have to be unique in the space. Like, you can't, your game has to have screenshots that look different than other people's games. I think your logo has to look different. I think your name has to be different and unique, or it's even tougher to kind of get recognized out there. So, everything that we do, we're always trying to push the boundary just a little bit and try to come up with something that feels, like a game we want to play, but also something that feels significantly different than other things that are out there.
So is Skipchaser the first game you made as Ponywolf?
No, we've done, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 games. We do a lot of game jams, so we have a few games that are done through the Ludum Dare 48-hour game challenge. We have a couple of games, actually one that we've done through the Indie Speed Run, which is another kind of 48-hour game programming thing. And then we have some bigger titles. We worked on a kind of platform puzzler for the NBA called NBA Escape. We did that through kind of a publishing contract. A publisher reached out to us to have us help on the game design and some of the programming of that, and work with other studios and a lot of other people. And then, even though Ponywolf's only been in business for about 4 years, 3.5 years, I've done game development for ages. So I started initially at Electronic Arts, doing some contract work, and then I had another independent company in the early 2000s called Number 2 Games, and we did CD-ROM development. So I've been doing it for a little while.
Yeah, and we have an itch.io and a GameJolt page, and if you search Ponywolf there, you can kind of check out some of our more recent projects.
How did you came from going to game jams and 48-hour races to making a full indie game that really goes on Steam?
Pretty easy, actually. I mean, we look at game jams as being a way to kind of rapidly prototype and test an idea. So if you take Skipchaser, for example, this was, I think, Ludum Dare 32, 33?
Maybe 34?
34? One of the early 30s. We did a game for that called The Mimic, where we wanted just to kind of experiment with randomly generated kind of rogue-like levels. And, I think that game jam was 72 hours. So within those 72 hours, we came up with kind of our little mechanic of kind of running around and shooting things up in a dungeon. Relatively quickly, and then we put it out, through Little Darren on itch.io, and then people played it, had feedback. A lot of people liked it. Typically, we do puzzle games. This is kind of the first game I think I've ever done that has a gun in it. Usually, we do things that are a little bit more, puzzly or sports kind of setup or kind of traditional gameplay, and. By kind of doing something on a game jam, we got a lot of positive feedback. This is something that people would, at least re-download or maybe even buy if we continued working on it. So we changed the name because the Mimic was a little too common, and changed it to Skipchaser. Took one of the 3 characters that we had built in the game and started blowing it out.
For what platforms have you developed Skipchaser?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
For what platforms have you developed Skipchaser?
Yeah, so right now it's just going to be PC and Mac. Our SDK that we have doesn't support Linux at this point, but it's a possibility that it could. And then since it's kind of a joystick kind of game, we don't really see it kind of going to mobile, but there's a possibility that it could go to Xbox platform. So we're looking into the new Xbox Ones, they call it the UWP platform, so we can take an executable that runs on Windows and kind of get it working there. And this game's relatively lightweight, so it should play fine on the Xbox, but we're trying to see how Steam goes first, and we figure there's about 6 more months of early access development that we'd like to put into it before we get it to a point where we feel like it's a complete game.
How do you think of each platform?
I'm sorry. One more time. I'm going to turn the volume up here because I don't think I'm...
Oh, wait. Is that better?
Oh, yeah, that's way better. Thank you.
No problem. What do you think of each platform? How do you like it?
Oh.
Yeah. This is kind of our first ever Steam release. And I love it. The idea that people have already, people who run groups on twin-stick shooters and rogue-lite games have reached out, and or we've reached out to them and asked for keys and have given us feedback. People like you have reached out, and that's just the kind of thing that you don't really get when you do, a mobile game or a console game, just because there aren't those kind of communities that are interested in the games when they kind of first come out. So yeah, it's been, I think a pretty big deal for us that we already have, 15, 20 people who are playing the game, recording videos, sending feedback. So I think Steam itself as a platform is great. Xbox One, it's been closed for a while, so we haven't released a game on it, but as far as the development tools go for the Xbox One, it's pretty similar to doing something for the PC. There's not a whole lot of change in how we would go about.
That's all getting opened up, right? Xbox.
Right, yeah. So they announced just a couple weeks ago that anybody can turn their Xbox One into a dev kit just by installing some software. And so we're busy trying to get this release out, but it's certainly on our list of things to do.
What type of education have you guys done?
I don't know how to answer that. Could you repeat the question one more time? Maybe I didn't catch it.
What type of education have you guys done?
Oh, education. Sorry, education. Yes. So my background's in computer science. So I kind of went to school before game development was a big, something you could actually go to school for. And so I did a standard computer science education, computer engineering, and then got really most of my programming knowledge from actually just working in the workforce.
And I went to school for illustration and a little bit of design, but didn't start doing any animation or game stuff till I started working with Michael, and just kind of, as we've been working on stuff, just kind of figuring out, you kind of learn something new every day. So.
Yeah, and I think James really brings kind of an illustration style to the stuff that we do, and even the things that we do that kind of look pixel arty still have more of a comic booky kind of illustration feel to them versus, I think, traditional game art. So thanks for that, James.
Thank you.
How many people in total have worked on Skipchaser?
Whew, geez. 5 maybe. So we have James and myself, which kind of comprise the core team. I'll give a shout out to Scott Meyer, who runs another company called Mutated Software. He's local to us here. He's got a game coming out the next couple of weeks called Blue Collar Astronaut. So he's plugged in on some development for that. We had kind of an intern level designer come in over the summer and help us out with some level design. We've got a musician who's done, I should say the level designer did a lot of sound work too. We have a musician from a band called BXBX that's writing a lot of the music that you see in there. Some of the music that's in it right now is placeholder, but some of the stuff that sounds a little bit more 80s synth is stuff that he's done. And we're working with him right now on kind of a bigger overall soundtrack for it. We've had playtesters that have helped out.
You mentioned Josh?
Oh, yeah. Josh, our producer, who kind of kicked the project off, taking it from a Game Jam game to putting this on track to do a full release. So, so a lot of people have touched it.
Did you use an engine?
Yeah, we don't really use an engine, but we use a software developer's kit called Corona, which is, it's pretty close to an engine as you can get, but different from like Unreal or Unity. It doesn't have level building tools or that kind of stuff inside of it, so it's more of a programming language. It uses Lua as its language, and then it sits on top of kind of native libraries like I'll get super uber computer developer geeky, but SDL, OpenGL, OpenAL, direct input, that kind of stuff. So it gives us the ability to kind of write once, and test it on a PC, but then kind of cross-platform and compile it for Mac and PC or mobile or console, whatever we want to do. And then we use a tool called Tiled, which allows us to kind of build like the set piece level. So if you see that big spaceship or the town that's not randomly generated, this Tiled tool is kind of our level building tool. And then we wrote the engine that brings in those tiled maps into Corona and kind of allows us to make them kind of move and put triggers in and that kind of stuff.
What was the biggest challenge in producing Skipchaser?
I think we're right at the biggest challenge right now, which is we spent a lot of time building this game engine and kind of building the gameplay, and we're trying to figure out what makes us different than every other twin-stick roguelike shooter out there. Certainly we've got kind of a story and a reason to be playing, but we're looking for kind of expanding our mechanics out right now to come up with something that feels fresh and unique in the space. So if you look at other games like Nuclear Throne, Enter the Gungeon, which are great games, each one of those has a little hook inside of it, whether it's the mutation inside of Nuclear Throne, flipping over tables and Enter the Gungeon, and just kind of their bullet hell setup. Those felt kind of new and refreshing, and so we're looking for that hook right now as we kind of do play testing and what people are going to look at Skipchaser and say, oh, it looks pretty, it plays nice, but it also has this thing that we don't know what it is yet, that makes it something special.
Yeah, we have a few things that we think people are going to love, but yeah, what's the one, I guess?
Right. I mean, the little kind of build your own gun kind of puzzly thing that we have in there. People look at that and go, oh, this is really interesting. As of right now, it's not necessarily executed, in a way where you can make guns that feel really different, and that's some of the stuff that we're doing in this last kind of round of push before our early access release. So you can build a fire weapon, you can build an ice weapon, you can build a poison weapon. So we think that's kind of unique in the space. But we're really looking for feedback once we go in early access to figure out what people like, don't like, and what they're missing from the game.
What was the biggest challenge in producing Skipchaser, and what will the challenges be in the future?
Yeah, I mean, with indie dev, it's always money, right? So, we do, about 50% of our time is doing contract game development work. So either helping out other studios or doing other projects that are kind of still in the game space but generate revenue. And when you work on a big project like Skipchaser, that's going to be, it's almost a year in development now. Just finding the budget, just finding revenue to kind of keep that project alive. That's always tough. And then, if a big, towards the end of the year, we had some game projects come in that took, maybe 50-60% of my time away. And so, trying not to let your game stall while that happens is tough. And then you promise a release date, or you promise we're going to get this thing done, and things change. So for sure, on the production side, it's just finding the money to pay everybody so we have the time to work on the game.
Did you get any help from the industry to develop and promote Skipchaser?
Yeah, we've actually been pretty lucky on that. We get tons of promotion from Corona SDK, which I mentioned earlier, makes the game engine. They're always kind of pushing people our way and doing releases when we have something, even just freebie games coming out. We're also part of the Intel gaming program, so we've been super lucky that we've got to actually show our games in the Intel booth at the Austin Game Conference, and at GDC we were in their Juice Bar booth. That stuff's been really good. But here in the U.S., we don't really have kind of maybe we do. We just don't know about them here. Like kind of those game funds, where a local government or a local organizational support game development. So as far as promotion, we've been super lucky that we have those promotional partners. But as far as kind of somebody that comes in that provides funding or anything like that, we don't have that kind of stuff.
Did you notice the decline from making money for indie games in the industry?
Yeah, I think money in the indie industry is, it's like buying a lottery ticket, right? I think there are people who can do indie games and keep their budgets low and can generate, enough revenue to do the next game, which I think is a grand goal. It's our goal, right? We'd like to be to the point where, we don't need to be millionaires. We just want to make enough money doing a game that we can go and either make that game better or do the next game. And then I think there's people who, have hits and make unbelievably great software, and coupling that with some of the bundle deals that are out there are able to do really, really well. And then I know a lot of people, the vast majority, who really struggle to either do it as a hobby, and so they're happy with kind of any sales that they get, or quit their job and try to make a game, and struggle when the money doesn't line up to expectations. And for us, it's always, obviously you want to see your game be successful, but the effort that we put towards these games, I kind of feel is an effort towards our company overall. So getting our engine better, getting those things working, getting different game frameworks going and all that kind of stuff, so our next titles are quicker and faster and easier to build. All of that stuff kind of, I think, contributes to us being successful. It's not just all about, selling, 500,000 copies on Steam. We want to try to make it, we want to try to be successful even if we don't, sell millions of copies. I know it sounds kind of silly, but, it's what we're hoping for.
Isn't there like prizes on those game jams you do?
Yeah, there are on some, but things like the Loot 'em Dare, that's just for bragging rights. There's no, big prize there. And then some of the, we just got done doing the big indie pitch, which it wasn't for this game, it was for a different game. But, and the grand prize in that, I think, was like $3,000 or $4,000 in advertising credit. Which is, for sure great, and we would love to walk away with that, but it's not, it's not like it's, enough money to continue to push your studio forward for, the next year. I see game jams as being mostly kind of exposure, and just people playing your game, I think, is so helpful. So, I mean, you can go and release a game, especially mobile, right? I mean, and Steam too for a little bit. I mean, you can go and spend a year on a game, and if you don't promote it or know how to promote it, you can release it and maybe nobody buys it, or 3 or 4 people play it. When you do some of these game jams, you're almost guaranteed that, even if it's just other game developers, you'll get, 15, 20, 30, 40, I think we've had games that have had, 200, 300, in fact, Wasteland Golf, which is one that we did for the indie speed run, had tens of thousands of plays from doing that one game jam, which really helped us kind of hone in on the idea that we wanted to do after watching, Let's Play videos and, getting people's feedback. So, I'm not saying that there's no value in doing a game jam, but there's certainly value other than getting a prize for it.
What type of games do you guys play in your free time?
Well, I'm still trying to finish Fallout. That's a year and a half later. I just, it's one of those things too. It's like when you make games, it becomes, I think, a little tough to, pick up a new big long game like Fallout and try to play it and finish it, just because every time I'm playing it, I'm always thinking like, oh man, I should be working on my game. Fallout I'm playing. I have kids. I have some young kids who play on the Xbox, and we just picked up Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time, and it's kind of a party couch game that's kind of fun. We've been playing that. There's another platformer kind of roguelike that I'm playing called Cave Blazers, which is also in early access. That's kind of fun. Our friend's game, Blue Collar Astronaut, playing a lot of that. James?
Yeah, I've been playing our game a lot. And play Super Time Force a little bit the other day. It's pretty funny. And some Shoot the Guy games with my brothers every now and then. Call of Duty. Not a lot of it, but it's just kind of, time with them, so.
Do you plan on making more Steam games in the future?
Yeah, so the engine that Skipchaser's written, we're kind of developing that engine with 2 games in mind. So Skipchaser, and then there's another game called Time Golf Squad. So they both share an engine. Skipchaser's kind of a shooter. Time Golf Squad's kind of a RPG game that has some golf rules in it. So it's a little weird. But it allows us to kind of put two different kind of projects into the same engine, so we get kind of double the bug fixes. So, like I said, we hope to have Steam out, or hope to have Skipchaser out in early access on Steam somewhere in the middle of this month. I think March 21st is our release date right now. And then we're hoping to have that Time Golf Squad out in mid-July. Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, it's kind of crazy being a small team working on two games, but it's also been pretty fun, bouncing back and forth between the two projects and kind of sharing some features and functionality that we build. And, you work on a game for really long. Sometimes you get tired of it. And I find having another thing to work on sort of helps ease that fatigue a little bit.
But yeah, it sounds a little weird that you go to game jams and try to make indie games in top speed and then slowly work on normal games on the side.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times you just want to try something out, right? Like you just, you just have an idea that's stuck in your mind that you can't get rid of, and maybe it just doesn't work in the current game that you're doing. And so, there's a pretty popular concept in game development of like, if you want to do something new, it's much, much harder to add it to the game that you're working on right now. And it's much easier to kind of build a little test bench and go test it out on the side. A lot of times for game development, when you do that kind of stuff, like nothing really happens with it, right? You make a little project folder on your hard drive and you do something that's fun, but maybe not fun enough to do anything with, and it just kind of sits there and dies. And so if you kind of organize it to do those kind of concepts while you're in a game jam, of course, then always the theme comes after the game jam and it's completely different than what you thought, and you end up making something completely different. But, it's a great way to kind of do that. And I think Itch and Game Jolt, like those two places, have really done a good job of, like, it seems like there's a game jam every week now, or 10 every week, that you can kind of plug in and find one that kind of speaks to you and, do something interesting. So, but yes, we are gluttons for punishment, to answer your question. We can't help ourselves. We have to make.
You have to keep making games.
Have to. I don't know what I would do if I couldn't or didn't. What would I spend my time doing?
I don't know.
Well,
You could say you're addicted to making games.
I could say that. I took a big long break in kind of the middle of my career. So I started in game development and then now currently doing game development, but I did advertising for a really long time. A lot of websites and that kind of stuff, and that was fun. I enjoyed doing it with the people I did it with, but it wasn't kind of the same thrill of taking a game and handing it to somebody and watching them play. Mm-hmm. Now James, he's awesome. He does comic books and t-shirt designs and all that kind of stuff. And so he's got more creative. He's way more creative than I am. So he has more creative outlets than I do.
Yeah, I just like to make things, and I think going back to game jams, I think that's why I like working on game jams with Michael, just because the timeline is so short. So you can start something, and then because there is an end date that approaches quickly, you can just kind of knock it out and get another thing. I think my goal is when I die, just leave a bunch of crap behind for people to clean up, and it all adds to that.
So you're planning on dying soon, or you want to leave a lot of stuff?
You never know. You never know. So just try to be prepared for it.
Okay,
Smart.
well, that's a good goal, I guess. Making a lot of smaller games and all, because you can die any moment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of logic in that. But yeah, I'm out of questions. Do you have anything else to say?
Have you played the game?
Not yet. I will in
not yet.
about 10 minutes, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, no, we just love to hear what you think about it, and anybody watching this, it should be out shortly, and it's really games, and even though we've been working on it for a really long time, a lot of that development's been the engine, not necessarily the game itself. And so, people who jump on the bandwagon early in early access, we're really hoping to have a dialogue that helps us kind of make this game the best game it can be. We're trying to put that in some of the things that we write about it online. Is we're looking for people who love this genre, and want to participate in making a cool game. So so we don't think our early access is certainly for everybody, but we think it's going to be a great way to kind of open test the game, and hopefully build a following, and hopefully make a great game.
Yeah, we're a pretty small team, so it's not like there's a lot of red tape or there's no disconnect between their Steam messages and kind of straight to us. So.
Yeah, we've had stuff already from people doing let's plays of the game that we've implemented, bug fixes that we've done, but also just kind of features where we're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense, we should be doing this, and 2 or 3 days later it's implemented, and the week after that it's live. So
yeah, we don't want to make a game that sucks.
You should not want that. You want a good product.
We're on
Games
the
that
right
suck.
yeah, so that's about it. We really appreciate you reaching out, and this was fun.
It was no problem. I have a lot of fun doing these interviews, and I need to upload something to my YouTube channel, right?
That's true.
So yeah, thank you guys for your time.
No worries, thank
You're
you.
welcome.